So as you know, I've been pretty bullish since May. Because I've seen the amount of money our government was willing to throw at the coronavirus problem to prevent an all-out depression as businesses across every state were being forced to shut down. And this is something, an event that no business prepares for. And you talk about a decline in 75% or more in sales immediately. In other words, you're not seeing a slowdown where you're changing your business model, hiring new people, going through those ebbs and flows like most businesses do. This is something that just you can't see coming. There's no playbook. It was immediate. It was damaging. It was scary. Having to lay off, furlough employees out of nowhere when businesses were, I mean, you look at the airlines, how great they were doing. Again, no playbook for this is pretty crazy. So the government had they react forcefully, aggressively, spent $6.5 trillion. $6.5 trillion included direct payments to families, $4 trillion for business loans that were pretty easy to obtain for most businesses, $50 billion in loans to the airlines, $8 billion in loans to air cargo carriers, $17 billion in loans to businesses who are critical to national security, $425 billion for the Secretary of Treasury, where they could use that cash to buy basically almost anything they want, which was bonds. In terms of backstopping risky debt, CLO market, which I was worried about. They backstopped it. It's fine. Investments, they could buy stock if they want. Well, you take the full amount of money, $6.5 trillion, is 35% of GDP, which is game-changing. So we have struggling businesses that were given a lifeline until the COVID risk would eventually die down, and we're seeing that. See, most states are open at some capacity or another. It's going from 20 to 50 to 70. And on the other end, we have businesses that started to thrive because of COVID, which is tech, social media, streaming, healthcare, almost anything e-commerce, Zoom, Overstock, Wayfair. You guys know all the names, Bongo, all those. Exercise equipment companies, gyms were closed. And of course, we have super low interest rates, which the Fed said at its recent meeting will stay at zero. The short-term rate will stay there for 3 years, right? I talked about yield curve control and why the Fed was definitely going to do this. So yield curve control is capping long-term yields so they don't go high, which was one of the biggest risks of the market because we have tons of debt, right? Essentially, they initiated yield curve control. They just did it on the front end of the curve. And the last time they did yield curve control was back in the 40s to fund World War II. The next 8 to 10 years, the market surged because of this policy. But now they just said, well, rates are going to stay low for at least 3 years, until we get full unemployment. Could take longer than that to 2023. So having super low rates locked in long term, a Fed's already spending trillions to backstop our economy. They're going to continue to throw trillions into this market because of the divide between Wall Street and Main Street. We all know it's going to continue for many years. And now what are we seeing with COVID? The numbers are getting better every week. Say, wait a minute, I'm hearing increases. You're right. Half the states are seeing increases based on our latest data. And it's nearly a 40% increase in cases from week over week, which is around 50,000 now. But that's kind of expected, right? Schools opening back up. It's getting cold around the nation. More people are staying home. It's not about the infection rates. It's about the hospitalization rates and a death rate percentage. That's the only thing anyone should care about. And unfortunately, a lot of the media, which is all bullshit, is just going to throw headlines at you to scare the shit out of you to get page views. But if you're looking at the hospitalization rates and looking at an increase of about 14,000 new cases this week compared to next week, again, around 40% increase, the hospitalization rate actually moved lower. The death rate as a percentage has continued week after week to trend lower. Now at 2.8%. It was well over 8%. I think it's still over 6% for New York City. The people who die who catch COVID. Now, what does this mean? When I look at this data, the people catching COVID in the U.S. are young, healthy, do not have underlying conditions because we're not seeing death rate rise. We're not seeing lots of hospitalizations. So it's kind of like the flu to them. And based on low hospitalization rates and death rates, we're doing a great job right now protecting the people in the danger zone who are over 65 or who have underlying conditions. So it's very, very good news. And we're likely to get a vaccine from J&J or Pfizer by year end. So the landscape for stocks is super bullish. Might sound crazy. NASDAQ pulled back. Listen to every single trader, every single one that you know that you follow, all called the bottom, or actually the actual top, on September 2nd. Our model said it. Get out of the market. They all have the date, right? It's like they all got together in a meeting and said, okay, this is what they're going to say. It's awesome. But if you're looking at the landscape and you're looking at 6-12 months, it's super bullish. And not for all names. There's some high flyers trading with 50 times sales. You've seen a lot of these names pull back, like the Teslas. A couple of other ones. Apple has pulled back. You've seen a lot of great names, especially in small caps that are still down well off their highs. But they're starting to see demand come back. It's a great opportunity. It's why I've been bullish. Our portfolios have benefited. So I continue to be bullish up to now. So when it comes to the stock market, and I've told you this millions of times, the one thing we know which is bad for the stock market, bad for equities, the one word is uncertainty. I'm not usually worried about short-term problems, but this election in November is going to be a complete shit show. It's not going to be decided right away. If it takes months to determine the winner, which is a possibility, we're going to see a major pullback in stocks. And rightly so, because these candidates have different agendas. I'm not too sure, they flip-flop on what they like, don't like, what they support. But I really don't want to own fracking companies if Biden wins. But I would think alternative energy, healthcare stocks, biotech will catch a bid since these sectors almost always do well when a Democrat first takes office. So we're talking about trillions of dollars sitting idle, looking for an allocation based on who gets elected, because that's going to determine the policy. It's important to understand that. If you're not pushing an agenda, there's money that's not going to flow into certain sectors. Now, why do I suddenly feel this way? Where I'm mentioning it and I'm nervous and saying, wow, we're going to see uncertainty to the point where we could see a huge correction in stocks. And just to be clear, it's kind of the status quo here. A lot of people think the election will be crazy. We won't have a winner right away. I didn't feel this way. Now, why do I personally feel this way? It's because of the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who was a Supreme Court justice, which you all know by now. You know the story. Trailblazer, outspoken, liberal, did things her way. And she had a way about her that even people who were totally against her philosophy or super conservative, like the late Supreme Court Justice Scalia, who is super conservative, had a great friendship with her. They loved busting each other's balls after cases, after meetings. I mean, it's really great stories. You want to do some research and reading how they just, tore each other apart afterwards, but they were friends and they understood they had different point of views. But anyway, Ginsburg passed away last week, leaving a door open for President Trump to nominate a new Supreme Court justice. Now, to bring everyone in here who may not understand the process of hiring a Supreme Court justice or the importance of it, there's 9 Supreme Court justices, and right now it stands at 5 conservative and 4 liberal, progressive, whatever you want to call it. Ginsburg's one of those 4 liberals, and her seat needs to be replaced. So the process of replacing a Senate Court justice is approval from the president and approval from the Senate, which the Republicans happen to control both. So Trump will elect a new Supreme Court justice who is conservative. He's going to do this before the election, November 3rd. And that's going to lead to 6 conservatives and 3 progressives, which opens the door to big changes. Basically assures that the liberal agenda is going to be impossible to pass, at least, in terms of law. Now, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and this is cool, her dying wish, according to Democrats, was that her position not be replaced until a new president is installed. That's awesome. The dying wish. Why was this so pressing? Because Ginsburg knew that the Democrats were really going to get fucked if she were to die before the November election, right? She knew that. Everybody knows that. Democrats know that. So basically, she was hoping for a Biden win, while she was alive, a Senate win, and then they can elect a liberal Supreme Court justice, right? Probably the reason why she wasn't retiring, she was very sick. But that ain't happening. Now, this is unfortunate for the Democrats. It puts them in a real shitty spot, and they know it. And how are they responding? They're protesting at Mitch McConnell's house, who's the Senate Majority Leader, the person who brings the Senate together to vote on issues. Mitch McConnell contradicted himself because this situation arose in March 2016. I'll get to that in a minute. Basically, Obama's second term, he's only going to be president for a few more months, but he tried to elect a new Supreme Court justice, Merrick Garland, to replace Judge Scalia when Scalia passed away, 2016. It didn't pass because the Republicans ran the Senate. But McConnell said, we need to wait until a new president is elected before bringing a vote to the floor. And now he's doing it differently. So Democrats are really pissed. So, hey, let's protest in front of Mitch McConnell's house. They're talking about increasing the amount of states from 50 to 52. Which I thought was kind of funny. So making Puerto Rico, Washington, D.C. states where they can get 4 new Democratic senators. Get more power, more votes. Talk about getting rid of the filibuster, which requires a supermajority of 60 out of the 100 senators to vote on an issue. I mean, that wouldn't happen until next year. And if Biden won, along with the Democrats controlling, the Senate, everything. Don Lemon, CNN, says we need to blow up the entire system. Blow up the entire system. Or abolish the Electoral College altogether if Trump elects a Supreme Court justice. AOC and other Democrats talk about increasing the number of Supreme Court justices. More than 9. So they have 15, whatever it is, who knows? This way they can have more progressives. CNN guest who's on a lot, Reza Aslan, tweeted to his 300,000 followers that if the Republicans try to place Ginsburg for the election, we burn the entire fucking thing down. That's what he actually said on his Twitter account. I'm quoting. We burn the entire fucking thing down. That's what he said. If all else fails, you got Pelosi in the pocket, right? But Pelosi is going to launch another impeachment against Donald Trump, which, it's like a yearly thing now, which will eat up the Senate floor time and help delay the Supreme Court vote until after the election. The old impeachment thing. You might as well keep bringing it because even when it's bullshit and you get caught, nothing happens to you. I mean, every president's going to get impeached at least once a year going forward forever, right? Because there's no consequences. You can make up shit. You can say whatever you want. You can destroy lives. And even when you get caught, nothing happens to you. So why not? Hey, bring an impeachment. My question, what the fuck are we doing here? I mean, has our country actually come to this? If Trump elects a new Supreme Court justice, and believe me, this is going to filter down your portfolios. The reason why I'm going over it, politics, I know, getting you guys all stirred up here. But if Trump elects a new Supreme Court justice, this would be the most presidential thing he's done since becoming president. This is what 100% of every standing president would do in his shoes if they control the Senate. Obama tried to do it in 2016. Tried to let Garland to replace Scalia when he passed away. It didn't pass because the Republicans ran the Senate. But if the Democrats ran the Senate, Garland would be a Supreme Court judge right now. Even though he would have got elected in March and it was Obama's second term. He was gone at the end of the year. The only reason why they didn't have Obama tried to push it through, Democrats tried to push it through, and it's their job to push it through. What Trump is doing is exercising the constitutional right to appoint a Supreme Court justice, which will strengthen his base heading into the election. Since there's conservatives that don't like him, I could see that. It's going to please a lot of these people. But this process is a layup. It's expected. Every president, Democrat, Republican, would do the exact same thing in his position. There's only 2 dissenters right now, the Republicans, which Republicans really don't need their votes. They have enough votes, but there's 2 dissenters, and they're going to change their mind or risk their political careers. Because when shit like this happens, and it's unfortunate, but when it happens, bases rally together. And there's never a better time to rally your base, especially with 2 months left in the election. But to be clear, this is not Trump looking to build a wall, which is controversial. It's not about Trump issuing tariffs against China and Europe, which he could do by himself without Senate, House proof, nothing. It's not about Trump saying stupid shit on Twitter. This is a president exercising his constitutional right to appoint a Supreme Court justice that will significantly strengthen his base. Again, every single president before him would and better do, if they want to get reelected, the exact same thing. Now, the Democrats want to impeach Trump for exercising this right or launch an impeachment against him. They're calling for more violence from the extreme left. Not all Democrats. They want to make Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C. states, not because they're deserving, it's a good idea, it's simply because they just want more power. And I'll be honest, it sucks for the Democrats that Ginsburg died just before the election. It's bad luck. It also sucks she's being remembered more for the political consequences than her actual achievements right now. But to launch an impeachment when Trump is following the law, it goes to show you not just Democrats, but we see from Republicans, they're going to go through any length, legal or not legal, to maintain power because they only give a shit about themselves. And that's why this election, it's not going to be settled on November 3rd. And I didn't feel that way until last week, and Ginsburg passed away. And just seeing what they're doing on TV and say, could you please honor her last wish? They don't care about her last wish. They probably did most. I guarantee you there's maybe one or two Democrats in the Senate that spoke to Ginsburg in the past 2 years. They don't care. Please honor her last wish. Why? So I could get more power. It's great. It's awesome. But it could take weeks. It could take months until we actually settle this. And if that's the case, you better have some dry powder because stocks are going to get nailed. And it's going to provide a great buying opportunity. I'll be there for you every step of the way and tell you about, which I'm going to go over more detail later on. My guest, Andrew Horowitz, awesome interview. We'll really cover everything. So I'm fire with his picks lately. It's going to give us an amazing short in a little while. But before I get to that interview, I'm bringing in two guests today that are in studio to talk about the political implications and how it could impact your portfolio. One guest you already know, who's Daniel Creech, senior analyst at Curzia Research. The other is first-time guest Greg Yanoli, who is a political strategist for the Clinton and Obama administration. I'm just kidding. Greg is our director of copy, partner at Curzia Research. If you are an investor in my company, you'd be very happy that Greg is on board, who's responsible for a lot of the sales for our company because of how good he is and how great he is. Very good friend. And we had an interesting discussion about Ginsburg, the election, and we had different opinions. And I just thought it was very powerful. And again, this is going to help you in terms of increasing your net wealth. We're going to go, but I wanted to bring in Greg. And Greg, let's hear from you. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. First time, and both are in studio. I have my whole team here this week, which is awesome. Thanks for coming on, man.
Hey, thanks, Frank. Happy to be here. Really exciting for me.
Well, I want to bring everyone in here because Greg is a boxer, right? He boxes, and I've been training lately, trying to fight him, and you've been ducking me, right? A little bit.
I don't know. I don't know about that. I think I think it might be a little bit of you're sending me your videos and trying to taunt me a little bit, and now I showed up and I'm ready to go, and I don't know how sure you are anymore.
Yeah, I sent him videos when I'm hitting the bag and everything and saying, well, I'm ready for you, so we're going to spar. We'll get that on tape, too. It'll be quick. I don't know. Hopefully it's not quick in his favor and my favor, but it should be fun. But we were talking about, and you had some strong points when we talk about Mitch McConnell contradicting himself. So I mean, why don't we talk about that? Because that's really something where it's expected, right? I mean, he's going to say one thing, and because when it's not in favor of his party, when it's in favor of his party, he's going to say something else, totally changing his mind. But they're calling him out on that, and he's on video and everything, which is pretty funny.
Yeah, so I actually went back. I mean, I obviously knew about all of this prior, but I only knew kind of the broad strokes, which was basically, he obstructed and was like, I don't care. We're not going to even allow a hearing of your guy. And his whole rationale was, there's going to be an election a year from now. And whoever that next president should be, the people should have a voice in deciding, who gets to be on the Supreme Court. It shouldn't be some lame duck president who's not going to be president again a year from now. It wasn't like it was September 23rd. We are now. It was not like it's September 23rd and the election's 40 days away. We're talking, the next president wasn't getting sworn in for nearly a year. Mm-hmm. But his whole rationale was, Obama's going to be gone. He shouldn't really be allowed to choose who the nominee is or who the justice is going to be. And of course now that was the rationale. Now it's obviously a complete 180. So I went back and I actually wanted to see what he had said about it because I was curious. I knew the broad strokes, but I was curious about the specifics of what he said. And this kind of tells you everything that you need to know about politics in this country and, the status quo, and especially the people who are, career politicians and the ones who want to stay in power. And, they're all just full of shit. It's really not about, there are really no guiding principles. It's really all about, as you said, staying in power, and winning for your team. Like it's a team sport, unfortunately. where we are a nation of, sports lovers, and we've kind of turned politics into a team sport where it's all or nothing. So anyway, I found two very interesting quotes. The first was right around the time that that all of this brouhaha was going on with Obama, and he said, the quote is, the American people are about to weigh in on who is going to be president. Again, we're talking almost a year from when he made these comments, but they're about to weigh in on who's going to be the president, and that person, whoever that may be, is who should make this appointment. Okay, so that was March of that year, March of 2016. And okay, fine. That's your reason. That's not really the reason, but we'll swallow it because we have to swallow it, Later on that same year, in a speech in Kentucky to his supporters, he said, "One of my proudest moments was when I looked Barack Obama in the eye and I said, 'Mr. President, you will not fill the Supreme Court vacancy.'"
Is that really what he said?
That's what he said.
That's
now,
great.
That tells you everything that you need to know about the state of politics in this country. He's not one of his proudest moments. This is his own words. One of his proudest moments was not participating in the government to which he was elected. It was in obstructing it. And let's be clear about that, because this isn't like, it's a Republican Senate and it's a Democratic president, and so we're not going to approve whoever you put in front of us. They didn't even give him a hearing.
Mm.
So the process wasn't even honored. They could have easily just done, like a show trial for this guy, and at the end of it been like, you know what, screw you, like they did with Bork. That's something that, I don't want to get too far down the rabbit hole, but the point being, like, they didn't even honor the process, and that he was proud of not honoring the process. He was proud of that. He said it himself. One of my proudest moments. So for him to now be saying, you know what, we're united now. The reason why that we didn't do it in 2016 was because we were divided. We had a Democratic president and a Republican Senate, and the people weren't unified, and that's the reason why. And now the people are unified. We have a Republican president and a Republican Senate, and so now the people have spoken, and therefore we must go forward with whoever Trump picks. And it's a bunch of BS. It just flat out is. I mean, you can't look at the facts and argue otherwise.
And not only that, everything's on video now, YouTube. Everything gets taped. I mean, so you're seeing so many of these. It's probably why Trump got elected in the first place, because when you're outside of that, it's a lot easier to come in than when you're seeing the typical politicians that everyone's kind of sick of, that just flip-flop back and forth depending on the polls. I mean, there's so many politicians. I won't get into it because I'll get tons of emails. Feel free to send us at frankrizresearch.com that just are totally different people because they're supporting different agendas today only because the polls say so and they want to keep their job. So they're not true to themselves, which I hate. I'm going to stay with you before I go to Daniel here, because one of the things that you said surprised me. And you said that you think Trump is going to win in a landslide. And I said, I don't think so, because of the amount of money that is behind Biden. I mean, it's incredible, where it used to be that they hated Wall Street, the Democrats. Now they love Wall Street to death because they're getting billions of dollars from it. So that, it's like, if you're a Democrat, you're looking at more and more and more billionaires supporting them, which is kind of weird, right? It's usually the other way. Like, they used to say, "Don't go to billionaires." And you even look at early on with the early debates, Democratic debates, how they were just ripping apart billionaires like crazy at raising money. Now it's they're all on their side. A lot of them are.
I mean, fortunately, unfortunately, I guess it depends on your perspective. There really is no right and left anymore. Not in the traditional sense. The Democrats are not the party of the left. At least the candidates we have now. The candidates that they put forward, which is very frustrating to me, because I don't want to get too far down the political rabbit hole, but this kind of speaks to why I think Trump is going to win. I think Biden has no chance in hell of winning. There's no chance in hell that he's going to win. And I thought that he had a very tough road to begin with, just by the fact that he was the Democratic nominee. I really think that the Democrats, they fucked it up 2 cycles in a row. I mean, they put forward a candidate in Hillary Clinton that everyone was convinced that she was going to win. And to be honest, I thought she was going to win too. There were so many things that Trump said and did in the course of his running for president that, in my mind, should have disqualified him. And in maybe any other year, at any other time and place in history, would have disqualified him, but they didn't. And what did the Democrats learn from that fiasco? Absolutely nothing. They decided to put forward a candidate that is another Hillary Clinton. The thought process being so antiquated that it's ridiculous. They decide that, you know what, center, really, I don't even want to call him center left. I mean, he's center. A center Democrat would have a better chance at running against, this is going to sound crazy to call him extreme. I think he is extreme, but he's not extreme like an extremist, but he has an extreme point of view. Biden does not have any extreme points of view. Like, I don't even know what Biden is. Like, he's like, I call him warm milk. He's like that. If any of you saw Gangs of New York, Daniel Day-Lewis's character, he's taught, and it's actually very fitting because he's actually talking to Tammany in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
The guy who plays Tammany, he's talking to that character, and he says he's all pissed off about something, and he's like, searing his meat, barely enough so that it's like, edible. And as he's like chomping into his steak, he's talking to Tammany. He's like, "You are neither hot nor cold, and because you are lukewarm, I spew you out of my mouth." And that is exactly what Biden is. He's neither hot nor cold. He does not have an opinion of any. His running platform, the only thing of any strength that he has that he's running on is, "I'm not Trump." That's what he's running on, and that's what he's hoping will carry him through the election. Because if you look at any other issue of any sort of substance, he does not have a strong opinion. You talk about fracking, like you wouldn't want to own fracking companies if Biden were elected.
I mean, he's kind of going just on
forth on
federal land and this and
Yeah,
that,
exactly.
but if I'm a fracking company, I would be worried. I mean, I would be.
So during the the primaries, he was all on the side, like, no more fracking, no new fracking. I'm with Bernie, whatever, because that was when Bernie was pretty powerful, and I still to this day. Well, we can maybe talk about that a little bit too.
Well, you think Bernie would?
Oh, Bernie would have had a much better chance of beating Trump. He actually might have.
See, I don't think so. I think it's just too. And I respect him, and this is what we're going to bring Daniel in here. But I respect him because he truly believes, and I even believe that about Obama, where I think Obama always had a love for this country. I was never nervous about anything, in terms of safety or political policy. I disagree with some of the policies. When I look at Bernie, I disagree with a lot of the policies, but I see it like he's passionate about it to the point where he really believes that system would work, and I kind of respect that. Like, that's how I felt.
Absolutely.
Let me bring in Daniel really quick, because this is where Daniel and I disagree. And again, this is what we're doing here. This isn't everyone agreeing. We're kind of like this, just having a conversation about it. And that's why I wanted to tape this thing. But you don't think that Bernie is genuine, right?
No. Next question. No. That was easy. No, the other night when we were talking, when you introduced Greg, he said something that really stood out to me, and it made me really think about it. And I respect his case on the sense that I don't want to put words in your mouth, Greg. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but basically politics have changed, and he believed that Bernie could win because he was real authentic, a lot of authenticity with the perceived voter, and he connected really well.
Mm-hmm.
And I really stopped and thought about that, and he did, because the amount of excitement he got in younger voters, generations, millennials. I'm 34, so depending on where you draw that line, I could either be in that group or out of that group. But a lot of people my age were huge Bernie fans, and that's something that I couldn't wrap my head around because I don't. I have a problem.
How would you not be a Bernie fan if you are a student and he's going to remove? You don't have to pay your debt anymore. Free healthcare for everyone. I mean, that appeals to a lot. People are obviously going to say, "I want that."
Absolutely.
If I don't have a job, if I didn't have a job, and I'd be voting for Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I mean, that's definitely what he's going after. I mean, you can get you can buy votes several different ways. You can literally pay for them, or like Bloomberg is doing in our own state.
100 million he's putting
Oh my goodness, that's funny. Well, I mean, I'm talking about paying off the felons' fines and all that so they can vote. That's lately. We don't have to go down that rabbit hole either. But I mean, you can give free stuff away. I just listen. If you're at the top, I'm all for dictatorship as long as I'm in the inner circle.
Mhm.
Socialism's wonderful as long as you're at the top. You're a Bernie Sanders socialist. You're a multimillionaire, multiple houses. Hell, what's not to love about that?
Yeah.
But again, that's only for a select few. So that's what scares me. And no, I can't buy him as authentic at all. But that's me.
Now,
But I do like how Greg made a great point the other night about how he engages people. I don't know if they would turn out to vote because millennials are lazy on
definitely
voting.
a
We'll see all
much
that.
more excitement there compared
Absolutely.
to Biden. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and it was a carryover from 2016. He did a lot of good in 2016, generating emotions and getting people to go for him.
Now, Greg, before we go any further, since you had strong opinions in terms of what'd you call them? Warm milk.
Warm milk.
What's your email in case anyone wants to email you?
It's Greg. No, I'm happy to. I would love to have these. I love these discussions. These are my favorite kinds of discussions.
So with Bernie Sanders, Trump's going to win a landslide. You really think Bernie Sanders would have got more? I mean, maybe he gets more votes. I just think there was no shot of him winning because he would have had that. For this election, it's coming down to that middle section, right? I mean, the left and the right are going to vote the way they want to vote, no matter what you do, present any facts. They're never going to change. But that middle part is what they're fighting for. And they're going to extremes, both parties, to get that. And I don't know if Bernie appeals to that middle part where they'll, I don't know.
I'm not so sure about that. I think that Trump appeals to extremes and Bernie appeals to extremes. And I think the middles are the ones that they're not really. So let me back up a little bit. The reason why I just said that I don't think Biden has a chance in hell of winning anymore is exactly because Ginsburg died. I think he would have had a tough time of it anyway. I think what's going to happen now is everyone's going to galvanize around Trump. Even the people that wouldn't have voted for him before are going to vote for him. And I know people that voted for Trump that said, I made a mistake. I'm not going to vote for this guy again.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to vote for him now precisely because of this issue. They're going to galvanize around him because the bigger picture is they want someone on the Supreme Court that thinks like they do.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the 6-3 court, which is what it's going to be, Obamacare goes away. And there's nothing to replace that yet, right? So now you have this big hole. And we talk about, Bernie having these kind of like these fringe ideas. Universal healthcare is not a fringe idea. 66% of people would approve of universal healthcare. That's 2 and 3. That's not a majority. That's a super majority. And that's not Democrats. That's all voters. 66% of people want that. They want it. That is what the people want. So this is not like a far left fringe idea. This is not one of his ideas necessarily, but universal basic income was something that was discussed a lot during the primaries. Andrew Yang. That's not a fringe idea either. It's pretty much split. 40% want it, 40% don't, and 20% aren't really sure what the fuck it means. These are not fringe ideas. So we talk about, we talk about Bernie as if he's way off on some island somewhere and like that, no one's ever gonna go meet him there. That's not really true. And what I think it comes down to when it comes to especially a presidential election, it's not so much important with Congress, I don't think, although it should be. But with the presidential election, it really comes down to it's a little bit of policy, but it's a lot of character. It's a lot of how relatable you are.
Mitt Romney was terrible in that department.
Yes.
And
exactly.
It killed him. And you know what? When you see him, when he's not on a mic or people that talk to him, you see him in different circles or whatever, he's cool. When he was on a mic, he was dry. It was, listen to Obama's one of the greatest public speakers I've ever seen. I mean, even you just, when he speaks, like the crowd just, it motivates them. It's almost, you see similar with Trump, but that's one thing. Yeah. He's got to be charismatic, but I think that really, really, really hurt Romney.
Yes, I agree. And I think it's destroying Biden. It's destroying tell me one person that relates in any way to Kamala Harris. None. I can't think. I don't even like. I mean, I can't find a single thing about her that I find authentic or interesting at all. I mean, we talked about this off air as well. I mean, 6 months ago, she was calling Joe Biden a rapist, and now she's happy to be his running mate. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Mhm.
That is ridiculous, not only on the face
But
of
it's a
it.
debate.
It's a debate.
Which
That's a
means
debate.
we're
Come
allowed to
on.
lie
It's
at
a
debates and
debate.
say whatever we
That's
want.
what it's called. It's so silly. I
It
mean,
just
it's-
wasn't a good reason, like just saying, "Hey,
It's
that's
a
what I thought," and
debate.
I looked into
Yeah.
it, and it wasn't that. It's
No,
debate.
you know what she said, and I kind of went back and looked at this too, because again, when you're watching these things in real time, I'm not sitting there taking notes, thinking like one day I'm going to have this like deep political discussion about these particular topics, necessarily. But so I went back and I watched that again. I listened to exactly what she said, and the quote was, I wrote it down. I'm not going to be able to find it, but the quote was essentially like, "Hey, look, you have." I've known Joe for a long time. I really respect him. You have, family and friends. You have like disagreements, but you find common ground or whatever, right? Okay. So let's follow that to its logical conclusion. What she's basically saying is, my Uncle Joe is a pedophile, but we're going to find common ground. That's crazy. Like if you believe in your heart that your friend / family member, in the analogy she wants to use, fondles little kids, you don't hang out with that guy, and you certainly don't go run run the country with him. So it's crazy. It's crazy to me that we let them get away with it, and that's why, for as much as I know why people who are going to vote for Biden are going to vote for Biden. It's because they hate Trump. And I guarantee you, if you ask them why, that is why. It has nothing to do with policies, because
we don't really know. I mean, the debates, obviously, before the debates, to say anything is ridiculous. It's like, it's anointing someone MVP in week 2 of NFL football. It's just, it's a complete waste.
It's going to be very interesting, that debate.
I mean, all the debates.
I
Had
can't
3
wait to
debates,
watch
the
it.
vice president debate. I mean, there's a lot of debates, but I think we're going to really learn a lot more about Biden. And I like the way it's set up, because everyone thinks he's going to do so terrible. Expectations are so low. It's kind of like Sarah Palin. I mean, expectations were so low, and she did very, very well. I mean, she did very, very well during that debate. But
It doesn't even matter what he says, though. I guarantee it doesn't even matter what he says, because you can't trust any of it. You can't trust any of it. With Trump, you can trust. You can, even if you think that he's just a bald-faced liar, you can trust the fact that he's a bald-faced liar. Like with Biden, like you just can't trust. Like he's just gonna say whatever he thinks he needs to say. Like that. I mean that's the sad truth of it. It's just the sad truth of it.
So
anyway.
let's get Daniel back in here before I start getting the hate mail from that. It's great. But this is an interesting conversation. There's a reason why, guys. We're going to bring this all together in a minute. But so Daniel, Greg thinks that Trump is going to win in a landslide. I disagree. I think it's going to be a lot closer than that. And I think it's going to go on for a while where the candidates votes. And if that's true, if it goes on for weeks and months, it is going to impact stocks. There's going to be uncertainty, and there's going to be money on the sideline. Again, it's going to impact different industries no matter who wins, what side you're on. But your opinions here, which I love, is say if Biden wins, and right now it's showing that Biden's going to win right now. It's definitely closer in a lot of states, but right now, based on the polls, and we know what the polls did last time and it didn't work too well for Hillary, that Biden's going to win and the Democrats are going to control the Senate as of right now. So that means they'll control everything, including the House. And that scares you a little bit, huh?
Oh, yeah. Frightening, Frank, frightening. And it's because of what you said earlier. I like Greg's point on you can't, they say anything to get elected, but you have to pay attention to what they're saying. And if they take everything, I have no doubt that they would do Washington and Puerto Rico to get 2 more senators, or 4, 2 apiece.
Mm-hmm.
And that would basically, you talk about macro, big picture stuff here. So let's say the Supreme Court justice goes through. So it goes 6-3 conservative. If Trump were to lose and then lose the Senate, you would have a 6-3 there. But then the Senate would basically never go Republican again, because you would have a majority. It's like California. There's no way California is going to elect a Republican senator. There's no way New York. There's probably no way that, pick up one of the most conservative states. Some of them are just entrenched. So if they would gain those territories, they talk about stacking the court, increasing that. I mean, that's just scary stuff. Doing away with the Electoral College, now that hits home for me, and, everybody's perspective goes back to their individualism. I'm a Midwest kid, so basically you have the East Coast and West Coast telling everybody in the middle, hey, you don't count because we have more people in our state. So if you do away with the Electoral College, those are big deals. I mean, those are massive, massive changes. And yeah, I would say go west, young man, and I would run for the hills.
Are you saying that you hate New Yorkers?
No, no, but I am.
They don't
saying,
give a shit about us in the West, in the Midwest,
or in the Midwest.
Yeah,
no, I don't. We joke about that. It's like, man, I feel bad for you on when you get fired up, and everybody does about their hometown, and that's great. But no, I don't think, and this is going to sound a lot worse than what I actually mean. So I don't have the right vocabulary, but I don't necessarily think it's a terrible thing that you're so divided in one sense. Like, it's okay for me to be favorable towards a small town because I'm from there and I had a great growing up. That doesn't mean I think the city is stupid, but it's also like I would be fine if most city dwellers, go through one stoplight towns and think, the hell does this even exist for? And that's okay. Like, I wouldn't take that as an insult. But when it comes to voting, like, well, your vote don't mean any more than mine. And just because you guys live in a city doesn't mean you should pick them versus somebody that doesn't, or some country folk or whoever.
No, it is interesting. And I want to thank both of you guys for coming on. And I wanted to do this segment because, one, it's going to really relate to your portfolio of what's going to happen here. It was an interesting conversation, but there's so much hate out there. And you can no longer express your opinions without losing friends, or even sometimes losing your business these days, losing credibility, everything, your reputation. But everyone should be able to express their opinions, even though there's things I disagree and agree on, even with people within, my job. At the end of the day, be like Ginsburg and Scalia, where, man, it doesn't get more opposite than that. Yet, you bust each other's balls about their opinions. We all get along. I mean, that's the way that's how you get better, right? By hearing those criticisms. But for my business, Curzio Research, I always hire people with strong opinions. I never want anyone to kiss my ass. I want to hear, even my research, and you guys know from following me so long, I always want to hear the other side. And I want to hear why you don't like my idea, because it could lead to something that could change my mind. There's nothing more powerful than changing your mind on a topic you felt so strong about, right? That's incredibly powerful. You're like, wow, wait a minute, this guy has a point. Let me look more into it. At the end of the day, it's going to save me. It's going to save my subscribers. But that's how you get better. That's how you achieve perfection, by listening to both sides, by listening to the criticism. And we're in a world right now where I have a lot of Democratic friends that are cool. I just don't agree with some of their policies. They don't agree with some, but to the point where it's hate. And, I've lost friends, some friends. I mean, that just have such strong opinions, and it's so crazy. And it's like, man, what the hell are we doing out there? But I'm hoping this change. I don't think it's going to change. Maybe it'll change after the election. We'll die down a little bit. But right now, with the emotions and everything, just seeing what's going on to the point where you talk about impeachment I mean, there's a million reasons to hate Trump. There's a million reasons to go after the guy. I get so many reasons to go after him. He's doing what every single president would do in his shoes right now. And he's doing it based on law, the Constitution. And like I said, it's one of the most presidential things that he's doing in his whole entire term so far. And I would say that for any president, that's what he's doing exactly what he's supposed to do. He's doing it by law. The Democrats would do it. The Republicans would do it. Every president would do it. And just the fact that you're going to throw everything, you could disagree and yell, but impeachment, I mean, changing, adding more states. I mean, holy cow, honoring the last wishes of someone that's dying that they don't really care about. It's pretty crazy out there. So really great stuff.